Hello everyone, this is Evan here from the Trade Risk on Wednesday, August 17th with a midweek market recap video. We are first going to look at the health of the current market environment. We're going to look at some other markets, leading and lagging sectors, and then get into some individual names to finish off the video. We'll jump right into things today. S&P 500 closed up 19 basis points on the day. Today was Fed Day, where we got the minutes from the last June release, and markets ended up getting a nice rally into the close or into those minutes and finished pretty strong on the day. So let's take a look at where we came from this week. We started off, this was Monday's session, this candle right here. We started the week off with this nice gap higher, breaking to new all-time highs in the S&P 500 and breaking last week's range to the upside. Notice last week we kept failing or finding resistance at around this 218.50 level, and we closed basically in that range on Friday of last week, and we started this week with a gap higher, rally up to about 219.50 before we pulled off the highs and closed a little bit indecisive, but still above the breakout range from last week. Yesterday, Tuesday session is where we got the gap down, close on the lows, the first kind of real sell signal that we've had in here going back to probably August 2nd, this day right here where we actually broke support. Yesterday was your first kind of mini sell signal where you failed to, hold this breakout level, came back into an old range, closed on the lows, right? There were a number of things going on there. We put out a post yesterday discussing, 5 reasons why we were short-term cautious on the markets. We actually got short yesterday. The S&P 500 put on a short as a trade, and today we did see that early follow through to the downside, and today when I look at all these charts after minutes and after the closes, markets behave very, very well technically, and we'll show all those different points where markets kind of bounced or reversed exactly where you'd want to see them or expect them to, if you're a technician looking at charts, looking at prior price levels. So the S&P 500 found support or bounced right at the 20-period EMA, but also right at this very significant round 217 level, which was the top end of this multi-week range back here throughout July. That's important. That's a very important kind of key line in the sand, and the lows from today, I think, mark a significant reference point going forward. So that's the area where if you're bullish, you want to see the market hold above today's lows. I think that's your new near-term reference point. If we break below here, fall back into this range, break below the 20, that's when things get a little more uncertain and the sellers really start to regain some momentum on their side. So that's sort of the line in the sand where I'd be watching on the downside. On the upside, we need to get follow through from this bounce. We need to see, is this just some type of algorithm fun kind of FOMC bounce that we saw today off of these lows, or are we actually going to get some conviction, some follow through, and will the uptrend resume? Will we be able to break through last week's range? That's what we need to see tomorrow, is follow through. So I'll be watching 218.70, 219, fill this gap, which is still a potential to be an island reversal. This is one of the points we talked about in the blog post yesterday, but basically Monday's session is effectively some trapped supply up here. Can we get back up here tomorrow, fill this gap, and start probing higher? That's the way I'm looking at things right now. Intermediate, long-term trend still absolutely healthy. Short-term certainly had starting to see a little bit more just two-way action, and that should be pretty evident right now based on today's action, yesterday's action, and we're going to need to keep it a close eye on that in the short term. So for us, we're still long the market. We still have a number of positions long, but we're still short the S&P 500. We still have a short SPY trade on. We're basically flat on that trade right now, or even on that trade right now. If we see follow through tomorrow higher, we'll gladly close that position out. We're going to let our long positions run. So we're still net long, but we have that short SPY on just because there seems to be some indecision here, and we want to just see how that shakes out. This could be noisy in here in this 1-point range, and we're just going to stay hedged, if you want to think of it like that, and kind of wait to get a little more clarity behind this market. So that's the way we're looking at that's the way we're playing it. That's the way we're looking at the S&P 500. If we go to the IWM, similar thing here, right? We broke below this quote breakout level that we saw back on Monday, where we broke above last week's range. We then Tuesday came back below it and continued to actually close in the red today on Wednesday. Did get a bounce off the lows, but you can see it bounced basically off of the lows from last week. So again, behaving pretty well technically, but it's still below this 122.50 level, and I think that just takes a little bit of momentum out of the bull's case, so long as we're below 122.50, and the Qs are still the strongest, right? Still in a very clear kind of grinding higher uptrend. Notice we came below the 8-period EMA, still closed strongly, closed in the green, so everything still looks good here as far as the Qs go. Still seeing leadership here, so that's kind of the broad indices as a whole. If we start to get in some of these other markets, TLT got a little bit of a bid today as well, still just range bound though, so it's still just basically noise inside of this holding pattern. We really need to see support or resistance taken out. That would be this support line right here around 138, or this declining trend line. If we can start to break above there and get a significant breakout, start making a new high, that would be significant. Until one of those things happen, it's wait and see right now for TLT for me. Gold still in a holding pattern as well, right in the middle of this big range that we're at, 130.50, 130.25, and down here at this trend line. Those are the areas that I would be watching. Similar comments here for silver. We came back down, again, behaving very well technically today, retested to the penny here. This 1840 level, got a nice bounce off it, back into the midpoint of this range. Got to give it more time, see what happens here. If we go to USO, continued strength here. We saw basically a V-shaped rally off of these lows. We talked about in our last video, go back and listen to it on, I believe it was the midweek video last week, but we discussed the significance of this day, of this kind of a day that was unlikely to happen or didn't have the probabilities in the bull's favor on this reversal day, but that was significant. Still does seem to be providing the fuel and kind of ramp higher here. So impressive move for USO for sure. It's V-shaped rally. Those are always the hardest to catch on to and get a piece of. And for now, that continues to work. 8 and 20s curling back over. UNG also finally now stabilizing a bit. It undercut this significant 790 support, based out for a few days here, and it's just kind of making up its mind. The selling pressure has slowed down, but we need to see, is this going to turn into a bear flag, or is this going to set up some type of squeeze back into this old range? That's what we need to keep an eye on here for UNG. Now, if we start to look at some of the sectors, individual sectors, right? Semiconductors, these continue to be the leaders. I've been saying this for many, many weeks or months at this point, continue to be so. XLI also shaping up to be pretty strong. We flagged these last week back near these highs here, so XLI continues to do well. But what's starting to firm up, particularly today, XLE, or the past few days, XLE now starting to really shape up back to the top end of its range here as it approaches this $70. We're going to need to keep an eye on this to see if we get a leadership emerging here. I know a lot of these names under their hood are looking good technically and are firming up, so just keep an eye on XLE on the energy sector right now. I know we've seen a nice bounce in USO, so there's some correlation there, but keep an eye on this sector right now. XLF also looking pretty primed here. It held this support. If we go to the weekly chart, you can see it broke out from this series of sort of lower highs patterns that it was in on a weekly basis, on a weekly closing basis here, going back multiple months and years. And you can see it's starting to emerge here and looking better and better. So keep an eye on XLF, the financials, and utilities also, which have been getting killed recently. Sorry, nice reversal day today, 1.5%. Pretty big, large range bar here. These usually mark kind of short-term bottoms, so just keep an eye on that. This is still in the context of a longer-term weekly uptrend, monthly uptrend, so keep an eye on this. Maybe this is going to be a bottom that you could trade against. You want to look at those individual sectors or buy the ETF if that's something that interests you. Next, let's get into some individual names. Apple continues to float higher here. This is something where it just looks like you kind of have to get in on board and buy this if you want to own it. You're not getting any significant pullbacks right now. It broke out from this series of lower highs just a few weeks ago, and it's continuing to sort of float higher. Hasn't given you a good pullback. You've had just a couple of days of chop in here, so it's been tough to get along to get aboard of. So just keep that in mind. If you're waiting for that pullback, you might have to just initiate or buy a position, or so on. Depends on your strategy. It's not a recommendation, just food for thought. Netflix, also one that's very interesting here, as it's kind of like that Apple move where it's been making a series of lower highs here for multiple months since the end of 2015, and it's getting really tight and kind of bumping up against this level here. So you're looking for kind of a large kind of expansion bar above this above this general area, take out this previous pivot, get up to this $100 level, then you get a real kind of change of character developing. But for now, it's something you want to keep a close eye on. Looking promising, but still hasn't given you that real kind of all clear signal just yet. Alibaba, also another one that's emerged as a leader here after reporting earnings, looking pretty good, letting the moving averages catch up to it. It's doing a little bit of catch up here in consolidation. That's healthy action. Don't lose sight of it. If you want to be involved in this, you want to keep a close eye on this name. Tesla, this is one that we looked at getting really tight in here, and it's starting to actually weaken up just a little bit. Notice where it closed today near the lows of the day. It's got some pretty significant nearby support right around this 222 level, or even 220 is where you'd really want to see it hold. If you start to get a close below that level, you'd have to be careful. You'd have to be worried of some type of larger rollover here in Tesla, so keep that one in mind. And then finally, Twitter, which has recently also emerged here as a bit of a leader, or at least some momentum behind it. And last we talked about this, we really just wanted to see it hang out and spend time above $19, spend time above this prior range where all this supply is, and so far it's doing exactly that. It's had 2 days of pulling back. Don't expect it to pull back too far. If this is going to be some type of new kind of momentum play here to the upside, you're going to have interested dip buyers as this comes back down, especially under $20. So just keep an eye on it. Again, if it's a name that you want to own, don't let it get away from you. Use even just 1 or 2 day pullbacks to get involved if that's something that you're interested in. So we'll end it there. I hope this video helps. As always, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.